Today, we're talking about how to build your network as an actuary. You've probably heard that having a strong professional network can make a huge difference to your career success and satisfaction. But how do you actually build a great professional network? And if you're a bit shy like me, how do you find the courage to build connections without feeling totally awkward? Joining us for this discussion is Lisa Staker, the Rebellious Coach. Lisa's an actuary and leadership coach based in the UK, and she brings 30 years of industry experience to help actuaries like you take the next steps in their careers. Lisa, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's so great to finally have a chat with you, Lisa. I was thinking today about networking, and you and I have never actually met in person. In fact, we live on opposite sides of the globe.
Yeah, it's what I love about kind of LinkedIn. We met over LinkedIn a little while ago and kind of been kind of conversing since on the messages and kind of sh seeing each other's posts and arranging this podcast, but actually never met in person. But even during that time, we've realized we have so much in common.
We do.
And so much is, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. It's the same issues that we're dealing with. It's the same problems. Our clients are very similar. Our backgrounds are really similar. I mean, we've just kind of gone through kind of how I got to be a coach, and it's very much how Julia got to be a coach.
Yep.
It's just, it's a lovely thing to do. And it's only by making those connections that you find these things out.
Absolutely right. And it is quite a small world, isn't it? That we both have that background as actuaries. We've both been actuaries for a long time, but we've also both trained as credentialed coaches. And as you said, those similar issues across the globe, one of those issues being how do you build a network? So really looking forward to hearing your stories and reflections and tips about how to build your network today. But before we get into that, I'd like to ask you the question I ask all my guests, and it's this. How do you use your actuarial superpowers to make a difference in the world?
Be different. And I know that's not what a lot of actuaries kind of do. Yeah, you don't have to follow the rule book. I think that's what my superpower is, that it is you don't have to do what other people think you should do. You do
Mm,
what is right for you
mm,
within the actuarial world.
mm.
There's great opportunities out there. It's a brilliant profession. It is. There's loads of different things to do. You don't have to follow the traditional route. It's absolutely fine to follow the traditional route, but you don't have to. So my superpower is to get to know people so they can actually find out what they truly want and help them get there.
What a great superpower as a coach. And you've certainly carved out a niche for yourself in that space and a personal brand as the rebellious coach. And for our listeners today, you've got blue hair today,
Yeah.
Lisa.
Yeah.
And so certainly standing out in the world as being different, being yourself.
Yeah. No, I think I mean, I'd say we will talk about it kind of how introverted it may not come across that way when we're talking here, but I'm an extremely shy person. I'm very introverted,
Mm.
but I also have this rebel inside of me that's kind of come out in the last few years. I now turn up, if I turn up to any events, I turn up wearing the clothes I want to wear. I
Mm.
haven't worn a dress in ages. I love heavy metal music, and I will just wear my t-shirts there. I will have my hair whatever color I like, and yeah, I just have to be me, and that's how one of the things that helps me. I wouldn't say get over being introverted, to help me manage my introversion
Mm. Mm.
when I kind of go into rooms.
So being true to yourself and showing
Yeah,
up in a way that's comfortable for you.
yeah.
Rebel Lisa. Excellent. I can identify with being shy, so I'm interested to hear that about you as well. So I wonder if you can tell us a bit, Lisa, about maybe one of your early networking experiences and what's changed for you over time.
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of background about kind of how kind of introverted and shy. I mean, when I was growing up as a teenager, I was a bit of a rebel. I wouldn't say I was the most outgoing person in the room, but within my small groups, I was kind of out there. And then when I went into the workplace, it was suddenly kind of an alien place to me. And that's when all of this kind of came out. I suddenly, my war paint was taken off. I had to dress in a certain way. I had to behave in a certain way. So it was almost like kind of taking away all my defenses,
Mm.
and I went to be extremely shy. Now, my shyness, I mean, I met my husband with my first job, and we've been together many, many years, and he will tell you, I still go into restaurants and make him go in first and talk to the person at the desk. That's how bad I am.
Wow.
It's still there, But what I've learned in doing things like this, and all the way through, I'll give you a little story in a moment, is how to manage that. I don't think it ever goes away. So if you think suddenly you're going to wake up one day and be an outgoing person, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
What happens is you find techniques to manage it. So the story I wanted to give, first of all, the first actuarial conference I went to, I'd like to say that I spent every single break in the toilet. I went back to my hotel room on every lunch break. I'm not even sure that I went to the big dinner in the evening. So if anyone goes to any of these actuarial conferences, 1,000 actuaries in one place, when I qualified, I thought I should go. And yeah, I hid every place. So that's kind of my background. And at
Mm.
that sort of time, I was working in an insurance company, and the guy from the head of compliance kind of came down to the actuaries, and he said he was just having a general chat with people. And he said, there's this group, it's an industry body, it's called ILAG, it's Investment and Life Assurance Group in the UK, and they're looking for people to go on their Prudential Regulations Committee. And I was a newly qualified actuary, and I overheard this. And in this mad moment, I thought, well, I've heard this, and this is all will come out of networking. It doesn't have to be formal. And I went and spoke to him. I said, well, I'll do it. I had an awareness of the regulations. I was following regulations in my work, but I was no way an expert.
Hmm.
Didn't know huge amounts about topic, but thought, no, I can learn this. So I went along to the first meeting, and it was a room. And I will say this was back in the early 2000s. So I was in my kind of early 30s, very timid. I had blonde hair back then. Kind of going into this room, young lady, and it was a room full of what I call men in suits.
Mm.
Very, these power suits, probably 15 to 20 years on me, all senior qualified actuaries, very intimidating. And I suddenly walked into this room, and it was like, uh, and I don't think I said a word in my first meeting. And everyone was all chatty afterwards with the coffees, and they were all talking, and they all knew each other. And I didn't say anything. And I think the second meeting was the same, and the third. And eventually I kind of got out of my shell. And part of the thing that helped me get out of my shell is I started attending seminars. And again, these seminars, you go in and a bit like kind of your views of formal networking, you go in and you talk to people and you have a coffee. And I used to go into these seminars and it was just like, I don't want to talk to anyone. And I go and hide in the loo again.
Mm.
And then gradually I worked out, I went and talked to the lady who was organising it. That seemed less intimidating than a senior actuary. So I went to talk to the lady who organised it, and she was lovely. And we chatted and probably chatted about more things outside of actuarial than inside.
Hmm.
And then she introduced me to someone, and we spoke and we chatted again. And then gradually over time, what I realised, and this is something it's a kind of a tip for later, is go and talk to just one person.
Mm.
So what I found is, these early ones, I didn't want to talk to anyone. I was terrified. I didn't know what to say.
Mm.
But by finding someone in there that seemed less intimidating, just talking to one person, and then my strategy kind of changed to be, I would just go and talk to one person. I'm not going to talk to the room. I'm not there to be the centre and the life and soul of the party. I never
Mhm,
was that
mhm,
sort of person.
mm.
I would just talk to one person. And gradually over time, that strategy, and I still do it today, works. You just go and talk to one person, and then gradually people get to know you, and someone else will join in the conversation. It does all the work for you. Um,
Well, it's a bit like
yeah,
compound interest, isn't it? You don't need
yeah,
to, have the full lump sum at the end. You sort of
yeah,
build it over time and it grows over time. And I think building a network does take time as well.
yeah,
And as you've found, rather than trying to get to know everyone and do it all in
yeah,
one go, just by breaking it up into little bits and just focusing on one person at a
yeah,
time, that's worked for you. And it's worked for you over time as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I I'm sorry to hear of your feelings around those overwhelming feelings when you're going to conferences and things and feeling very overwhelmed in a meeting and sort of needing to take that break to recharge your social battery. I can totally relate to that. And sometimes at a conference thinking, I just can't do the dinner tonight. I really
yeah,
need some time without people just to kind of recharge and get ready for tomorrow. So but I'm curious that, early in your career, you talked about, as a teenager, you were very rebellious, very outgoing, and then you came into the corporate workplace as probably in the minority group as a woman in those
yep,
times. It still is really in the actuarial profession, but less so. and without your armor, without, wearing what
Yes.
you felt comfortable in and what you
Yeah.
do feel comfortable in now. Curious, what was going through your mind at that time? What were you thinking about your career choice?
Um, oh, it's an interesting one, that one. I mean, a little bit of background, my father was an actuary, so that's how I got into it.
Okay.
So father was an actuary, so sort of knew what it was. Not really. I would say I didn't really know what it was. It was to me, it was like I was good at maths, so therefore you go into be an actuary.
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, I was very, I suppose, ambitious. I almost like wanted to prove myself in the world.
Hmm.
Won't go into it huge now, but just kind of family background and things. I was always like overshadowed by my brother.
Hmm.
So I wanted to prove myself in the world. So when I was going in, I felt I had to prove myself. And how do I prove myself? Well, I have to do everything they do.
Right. Have to be
So
like
that
that.
was kind of going to had to be like them, had to be,
Yeah.
but also wanted to do things differently. I mean, when I was calculating premium rates, I put the female rates first.
Okay.
You know, in the time when it was just like you had male and female on either
Yeah.
side of the page, I swapped
Yeah.
them over. The marketing department then swapped them back in the
Yeah.
good old days of rate books and things. But I was kind of making, the little
You're making
rebellions
your
in there.
mark. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I wanted to be, and I wanted to show my family what I could do. I wanted to prove to my
Yeah.
dad that I can be a qualified actuary and make
Yeah.
him proud, everything like that. So that was kind of
Mm.
where I was kind of going to, and it was almost like, I mean, I remember back at school, my deputy headmistress said to my mother, she can wear what she likes to school, but don't ever let her dye her hair pink, because that's the first thing I did. But it was almost like do what you like now was kind of ingrained into me, but as soon as you kind of hit work, you have to conform.
Okay.
And so I think that's what was growing up, and so that kind of came into me. And I think that you have to conform probably hit my confidence.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't have to be someone I'm not, and that wasn't who I naturally was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And it sounds like over time you've evolved back to who you really are and you feel more confident to show up in that way, which is probably easier to do later in your career once you've established
yeah,
yourself a little bit as well.
yeah. No, it is,
Yeah.
and it's
Mm.
it is very hard. If I suddenly turned up like this early in my career, I wouldn't have been taken seriously.
Mm.
And the world has changed as well. The world is
Well, it's
much more
changed. Maybe in
accepting, much more
2025 you
tolerant.
would. Yeah.
Yes, it's much more tolerant now. Um, so yeah, so
Okay.
it was hard.
It sounds like it was hard, and I hadn't realized how introverted you are as well. But I think many actuaries are. I think and I'm generalizing here, not all of us, but I think many actuaries are introverted um, and possibly shy as well. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how can someone who considers themselves to be awkward or introverted or shy or socially awkward, how can they start networking in a way that feels more authentic for them and less awkward?
I think the one-to-one strategy. So if it is kind of there is formal networking, there is, it's what we all think is that room of crowded people.
Mm.
It is trying to make it one-to-one and realize it's over time, you know, it's small steps of courage
Yep.
will be, overcoming that fear, just one step at a time will build the compound interest kind of energy I love
Yeah.
because it kind of, yes, it will build over time. Again, you don't ever expect, you might well turn out to be the center of attention in the room. You
Yeah.
might end up being a keynote speaker, but that's not what you're aiming to get, just one step
Mm.
at a time, just to
Mm.
get used to being there.
Yeah.
And then I also think kind of it don't have to be formal. Networking is anything. Like I said in the kind of the story, it's just someone came down and was speaking about something and I joined in the conversation. Networking can be having a coffee with someone.
Mm.
So
Mm.
if you want to kind of build your network, maybe target one person at a time.
Mm.
So if there's someone you haven't seen for a while, or if there's someone that you think does a particularly interesting job at work and you want to find out more, arrange that coffee. I know we're not all in the offices.
Yep.
It can be a virtual coffee, but kind of stay in touch. And again, it is a bit nerve-wracking, particularly if you're intimidated. Maybe you think, oh, they're more senior than me. I can't do this. They
Yeah.
would love to have a chat with you.
Yeah.
They really will. You'll be surprised. They may kind of like find it hard to fit the time in,
Yeah.
but they will actually love to have the chat. So go in there with a kind of like don't feel intimidated by them if you can. So one step at a time, build that, do it in small groups,
Yeah.
and you will kind of gradually get. And the other thing to really remember is the actual industry, it does attract introverts. It does, there's a lot of people who are shy. Again, it's very generous.
Mm.
But when you go into one of these networking events, I can almost guarantee you that 90% of the people there feel awkward.
Yep.
You're not alone. And I think that's also something to remember when you're trying to build up your network. You're not alone. They will all have their individual strategies, even if the most outgoing person that you think there. I mean, was speaking to my boss once, back in probably about mid 2000s, and we were chatting, and he said to me, I used to go and hide in the loo at conferences. And I just thought, wow, this is not the person I would have thought of that.
Wouldn't
I
have
thought of him
expected
as a,
that.
being a hugely confident
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
And then when you just realize that, and that's when it all kind of, it all kind of washed away, we're all
Mm.
put on a front.
Absolutely. It's a bit like people presenting on stage, right? Like I used to look at those people and I think, wow, they must be really confident. They mustn't get nervous before they get up and
Yeah,
present. And then you realize you talk to them and like, oh yeah, I'm nervous. And I think I can get up and present on stage now too,
yeah,
but I always feel nervous beforehand. And I've realized that that's just part of it. That's just part of the process. It's not something you can just fully get rid of. And it's not like some people are and some people aren't nervous, or some people are confident, some people aren't. I think we all have that sense of um, nervousness or awkwardness or
yeah.
fear around that. Fear of rejection, fear of saying something silly, fear of upsetting our reputation.
Yeah.
So much fear that can get in the way of us building our networks and getting out there and doing the things that are going to make a difference for our career.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my one of my tips, kind of, if you do have a conversation, you think, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that," or "That was something silly." Try and remember the fact that you are just one tiny bit of that person's day, and they have probably forgotten about it.
That's right. That's
They
right.
won't have actually remembered it. You would, you
That's a
may
great
say something,
point.
"Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I don't look technically competent," or "That was the wrong answer. I should have
Yeah,
said it was
yeah,
this regulation, not that one."
yeah,
They've forgotten about it. The only
yeah.
person who remembers it from you. So if you
It's
can kind
true.
of come to terms with it and move on as well, the
That's
world will
such a
be a
good
happier
reminder.
place.
That's such a good reminder, Lisa, because where everyone is focused more on themselves, right? So we think everyone heard that and everyone's paying attention to that, but really they're all thinking about themselves. So, or the next meeting or the last meeting or
Yeah.
something else that's going on for them. So that's a really, really good reminder.
Yeah.
So we've talked about sort of traditional networking, and I remember early in my career I thought, oh, I'm going to have to like learn how to play golf, and I'm going to have to learn about sport and all these things that I don't really know. I've now learned that actually that's a myth. I think that that's really, maybe that works for some people. For me, I also like the one-on-one contact as well, but also doing things with people I found has been a great way to build my network. Staying in touch with your colleagues, just things that happen as part of your career without having to go too far out of your way to, network. That can really pay off over time too. But I'm curious, Lisa, in your experience, I mean, what are some of the biggest myths or misconceptions that you've come across when it comes to networking?
I suppose the biggest thing is you don't have to be an extrovert. You don't
Mm,
have to love it. It's just part of it. Don't only do it when you need something.
yeah.
So a lot of people will think, oh, I want to change my job. Oh, I'll start networking now and I'll try and make some contacts and see if they've got a job. It not only looks fake, but it probably makes you look at, it can make you more uncomfortable having that conversation. Whereas if you're doing networking all the time, it becomes natural. You've got the network there, and then if you do need something, it's a genuine to kind of go out and do it.
Mm,
Um, we've spoken about it before. It doesn't have to be formal. I love that, it can be over the coffee. It can be socializing. I mean, probably my best networking place was the pub.
yep.
I used to,
Having a
we
drink
used
with
to
someone.
go for an evening drinking. I'm not a great sports person. I didn't really like going to do paintballing, and the idea of an away day, I must say, I turned those down most of the time.
Mm,
You don't have to go to them.
mm,
So all of those sorts of things. But yeah, do whatever feels comfortable for you. If it's joining a book club, a chess club, a bowling club, whatever it might be, with your colleagues is fantastic.
mm.
All the actuarial institutes run events. They're all people there who are probably a little bit shy, a little bit awkward. So it's going to be a nice, safe place to go.
Yep.
Give it a try. If you don't like it, you don't do it again.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I guess the benefit of doing it that way too is if you're doing it an activity that you enjoy, then you will enjoy going bowling or having a drink, or, if it's those sorts of things, you'll get that joy out of that activity as well. You're not kind of feeling like you're completely awkward and out of your
Yeah.
comfort zone.
Yeah. So it does give you, it'll give you a little bit more confidence in doing it because it is something that you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think is a myth is that you don't have to network. And I think that's,
Mm.
um,
To network.
yeah,
Okay.
you don't
Break
have to,
it
if you're
down for
good
me.
at your job,
Yep.
if you're good at your job, um, a lot of actuaries are exceptional at their jobs, are very good technical people, opportunities will arise and they'll just come up.
So the
I'm a
myth.
believer that, yeah, that you getting to network is vital for your career. You do
Yeah,
need to kind of talk to people,
you do.
get out there. It will give you those opportunities. It may not be for jobs. It might be just for a different project at work. It could be just some training that you want,
Mm.
or you want to kind of get hold of. It just leads to opportunities. So if you're kind of sitting there thinking, actually, I'm really good at my job. It's just going to all fall at my feet. I don't think
Mm.
that is the world nowadays. It
It's not.
doesn't just fall at your feet. You have to go out there,
Mm.
and going out in a way that you're comfortable with is the way to do
Mm.
it.
Mm. And certainly, we've all just been through a pandemic that's turned upside down the way we do our jobs. And I know here in Australia, our life insurance industry is going through a lot of consolidation. There's a lot of redundancy of mid and senior level actuaries. And so it can be quite confronting when you've been great at your job, like you've said. And,
Mm.
we invest so much in our training and
Yeah.
our getting qualified. And there's almost a sense that we should be able to just rest on that
Mm.
qualification. But in today's world, I don't think we can. And so, yeah, I agree with you that networking is something we all have to do. We
Yeah.
can't just say we don't need to do it because we like our job at the moment. Life won't stay the same. Yeah. You said something earlier, Lisa, that I wanted to pick up on. You said, don't build the don't build the network when you need it, sort of build it in advance. So if you're doing networking all the time, what does doing networking look like for you?
Um, it's probably slightly different now to it, but when I was kind of back in the kind of the corporate world and in the kind of in the office, it would be regular coffees with people, not only to try and keep my own sanity. So, you're stuck at your job. People personally, I'm shy, but I do love being around people. Um, Actually going out and kind of having a coffee with them, having lunch with them, finding out what was going on. I'm also naturally curious. I like to know what's going on in the other parts of the companies. I've
Mhm.
tended to work for smaller companies where you know the cleaner and the CEO.
Right.
So I like those ones because you can get to know everything. And when I've worked for a bigger company, I've struggled with not knowing everything. So it kind of that's, and then it also mixed with what I call kind of the more formal, the seminars,
Mhm.
those are the ones where you're more likely to find the next job opportunity or the next
Yeah.
speaking opportunity. Because I think later in my career, I love doing seminars, I love doing speaking. It's something I kind of developed.
There you go.
And so kind of finding out those opportunities as well to go out and help people and then just offering help. So being a mentor, so that was kind of a great way of networking with people in other areas. So I wouldn't maybe just be a mentor to actuarial people, I'll be a mentor to kind of the other people in the finance department or even kind of customer services areas. So just trying to go and find out about other stuff.
Mm.
You can kind of that mentor and things and getting yourself a mentor in a different area as well is a great way of finding out other things that you might be interested in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's so it's a multi-pronged approach
Mm.
to kind of do it, and it's doing it all the time, so that it's not only networking is not only for when you want to find a job. It's just particularly in that since we're more people are working at home and things, it's having that kind of support network. Oh, I've got a
Yeah.
problem. Want someone to talk to about it.
Yep.
Or I've got an issue with someone at work, or it might be a work technical problem, or I'm not sure what to do in this situation. Having that network there gives you other people to talk to, not just your work colleagues. It might be something you don't want to talk to your direct work colleagues about.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I like your perspective as well around it could be offering help. Sometimes we think of networking as creating something that will help us, but
Mm,
actually it's an opportunity for us to help others too. And sometimes that can make it a bit more palatable, a bit easier to feel like it's worth investing in as well if we're helping others, not just helping
yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, one thing my last company did, we did little kind of little training sessions on a Tuesday where people volunteered to do. It was all virtual at that time, but a session that kind of went to the company was all over the UK, and you had a topic, and it could be anything. You know, some people did it on park runs, so running. Some people, and I did it on not being a typical actuary.
Yep.
Um, you know, it could be any topic, it could be football, and they just put it out there. And it was a great way then of getting to know other people because you just did a shared interest or someone was just curious and they come on the call and it was like a little mini training session. And that was
Mhm.
another great way of networking because I've then had contacts kind of around the company who afterwards I said, do you want to know any more? Do you want to
Yeah.
have a chat? And there's a few of them I still see now, which I met through that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And you're also sharing common interests. You're getting to know each other as humans as well. So it's not just about work. Yeah, which is a great way to strengthen those bonds.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. So I wonder whether you can tell us a bit about the benefits of networking for you in your career. I wonder if you've got a story that you could share around how networking has led to maybe an unexpected opportunity or some sort of connection in your career.
I'll give you two short stories rather than one.
Great.
Going to be
Love
cheeky.
it. Love
Um,
stories.
one which is kind of the more kind of traditional one, which was, through my networking at ILAG, as I mentioned earlier, I used to go to seminars. I got used to talking to people in the coffee beforehand.
Yeah.
Um, and there was a lady there who I had crossed paths with 10 years before. She was a student at the time. She worked for consultancy. The consultancy happened to work for the company I was working for. And I saw her in there and I thought, oh, someone from ages ago. So I started chatting to her. And I don't quite know how we got on the conversation, but I got onto, as I wasn't quite happy with what I was doing at work. And she just to me said, well, we're looking for someone. And I hadn't met this lady for ages. She didn't know much about me. She'd seen kind of my career path, but we kind of hit it off. It was a small company, so it's very important that it was someone that everyone could work with. She knew what I'd been doing. She thought I'd be a good fit for that company. And she arranged for me to talk to the boss, and we things went from there, and I got a job.
You got the job.
Um, got a job, yeah. So it was that sort of thing. So that's a real kind of traditional thing.
Yeah. But a very
They the
tangible. And the job was good. You enjoyed the job. I mean, that's
Yes,
yeah,
no,
that's the other thing too. It's like, it allows for a more robust assessment about whether or not it
yeah.
really would be a good fit if you start to get to know somebody and you're actually, having those conversations rather than just going in cold.
Yeah, so yeah, you knew the lady, knew the other people, knew the kind of culture of the company. I went and had lunch with the team before I
Yep.
did the job. It was the whole team, so it wasn't.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a very small company. So yeah, so it was a direct link to that
Mhm.
meeting. If I hadn't meeting, I wouldn't even known they were looking because at the time
Yeah.
they weren't actually no job spec. It was just they
Mm.
were thinking about it, and
Right.
then when I came along. I fitted what they wanted. So again, a
Yeah.
bit of luck, but
Yeah.
and it went on to the thing. The other one, which is a little bit more unusual, was we were at work one day and I used to keep in touch with the investment team. So, Actuary's investment team, we have to know what's going on with the investment side of stuff. So every so often I used to go over them, have a little chat with them,
Yeah.
find out what the latest was. Is there anything I should be aware of? So I was doing that. And, you said earlier about kind of all the sporting events. Over my career, I've been invited to so much cricket and football, which I must say I have all turned down because however much it might be nice doing corporate hospitality, it leaves me cold. I couldn't do it. But they were talking about this guy was going on about, oh, I've just been invited to the British Grand Prix and I hate motor racing. And I just said to him, I quite like it. And he said, do you want to go?
Ah,
Okay.
yeah.
And it's just so I got an invite to the British Grand Prix, which was I got helicoptered in.
Helicoptered in.
Yes.
Wow.
So you never know where these things come up. And that
Mm.
was just me being just having a chat to the investment team. If I hadn't gone over there and said I liked motor racing, they
Yep.
would have never known. They would have turned it down. No one would,
Yep.
from the company would have
No one
gone.
would have
So I
gone.
went along and represented the company. To be honest, I was the only one actually watching the motor racing. Everyone else from every other company was there for the corporate hospitality.
Okay.
But one of those stupid things, I actually like it.
Mm.
But yeah, so you never know. So if you have
Mm.
those conversations and you keep your ears open
Mm.
and be curious, a lot of introverts, you don't have to be talking. are
Mm.
great listeners. So use your superpower of listening to hear for things and then get your courage to say something.
That's such a good point. We don't have to just be thinking about the next clever thing to say. We can just listen,
Yeah.
ask questions, be curious, and find out about other people. Yeah, and it paid off for you in this situation with
It
the
is.
helicopter ride.
Yeah, I mean I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting to be told to go along to Silverstone and just arrive there and obviously have a nice lunch and things. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
then they said meet at this airfield. I thought, okay. So
Wow,
yeah,
what an
that was very
experience.
nice.
What an
Yeah.
experience. So, Lisa, it's been interesting hearing your story from your early beginnings, trying to fit in, but feeling very shy and introvert, having to hide in the loos in the lunch breaks and skipping the dinner at the seminars and the conferences, to learning how to use your strengths and superpowers and network in an authentic way by just doing one-on-one meetings and
Hmm.
doing coffee or having a drink, doing something that you felt comfortable with. And over time, that built and those
Yeah.
investments paid off as you built your network throughout your career. So it's been really interesting hearing your stories and some of your tips and suggestions and reflections. So thank you. I want to close our interview with one question, and it's this. What's your top tip for actuaries wanting to build their professional networks?
Be authentic to yourself. Do what feels right for you. So we've said there, things that felt right for me, which is the keeping it small, one on one, catching up with people that you haven't seen for a while, but do it constantly. So the top tip, be yourself, do what's comfortable. Find there will be something in this many different kind of ways of doing things that you feel comfortable with, and then go with that and be yourself. And that's the way you will build. And you'll suddenly you'll start doing this, and you suddenly look back at the last 5 years and think, actually, I've got quite a big network here.
Mm, mm.
But it will be that, just let it build, and it will get there.
Yeah. Great advice from the Rebellious Coach. Lisa Staker, thank you so much for your time today. It's been wonderful chatting with you about building a network.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be on here. Thank you.